So, this will be an interesting video. Hopefully it does well, but I don't know. So, I like tabletop RPGs, and for the longest time I did enjoy Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, but they fucked up. So, I have moved on to other systems, but I still want to talk about the things that I love. But I didn't want to talk about the new fucking fancy pansy edition of Dungeons & Dragons. So, I was thinking. I talked about it in my video about how third parties are important for TTRPGs or anything in general. And I did say that I backed one Kickstarter, well, another Kickstarter that hasn't been physically gotten to me yet. And I wanted to talk about it, but I don't have it physically. But I have it as a PDF. So, I wanted to specifically talk about a section of that book, and that would be the Jaeger class that came in the book, and the book being the Steinhardt's Guide to the Eldritch Hunt. And the Jaeger class that is in this is, how do I explain this? Have you played Bloodborne? You are a hunter from Bloodborne. And it is, for the most part, a very interesting and finicky class at points because you need to have good rolls. But if you get good rolls, oh my god, you hit like a fucking truck. That being said, though, it is a very, very tactical class, I would think, because you have to do a lot of legwork to be able to fully utilize it and really bring out the potential of it. So, I figured that I would talk about the overview of it and go into how I think the class is. I will say, right off the bat, I haven't been able to play this because, I only have one group that plays TTRPGs and we're playing a vampire campaign. So, we haven't had time to play anything other than that. So, from there, I am going to go into some details on the class itself and how I think it should, you should try to play it. Granted, I could be completely and utterly fucking wrong, but, let's have fun here. I'm not here as a guy that knows a lot about game design. I did flunk out of game development, so, this could be interesting. So, let's get into overviews of the class in general and what my thoughts are. So I do want to say right off the bat that this class was based off of the 2014 edition of 5th edition, and I still think it's dumb that they're not calling it like 5.5 or 6th edition Dungeons & Dragons just because they don't want people to be like, oh no, it's a new edition, I don't want to deal with all that. Whatever. So keep in mind that this is the edition that came out 10 years ago. This is the mechanics and stuff that came from that. So, I will say that the Jaeger class is also the chassis of the Jaeger class, essentially, is taking from the Rogue. So, you only have a D8 of hit points, and you are squishy. You are not a tank, so to speak. You can sort of deck yourself out to be a tank, but you do not have the hit points of a paladin or a fighter. You have the hit points of a rogue or a warlock. You are not as squishy as a wizard or a sorcerer, but you are not as tanky as, say, a barbarian. So keep that in mind, that you at the max will get 8 hit points every single time you level up, and you probably want to get as many hit points. So there is that. Other things is that you do get a lot of proficiencies, namely the weapons. You do have simple and martial, and that's pretty good because you're going to be a heavy attacking base. You want as many options as you possibly can, but you do not have shields because the Jaeger, like in Bloodborne, you are going to be dual wielding. The entire class is about dual wielding, essentially, whether that be a gun, because Steinhardt's has firearms, or a sword or a trick weapon, because they do have that in the book, but we are just talking about the class in general. You also don't get that many skills. You only get 2, and there's a list of them, so you don't get as many skills as the what is it called, the rogue, or as many as the ranger. You are getting about as many as like a fighter, so there's that. But you do get pretty good saving throws, being dexterity, which is all the time, and intelligence, which doesn't come up too much. I think wisdom is more often, but intelligence is still pretty good because there's a few spells that really fuck you up. So all in all, they got pretty good, decent a spread of proficiencies. Equipment that they get is roughly the same, except like you get to have a pistol starting off, and you get a little bit more weapons. So that's what you get at the beginning, but you also get a few other things. This is a heavily combat focused class. You really, based off of what I've read while going through this over and over again, I would say most of your abilities that you get while leveling up are related to combat. You only get like, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 abilities in the base class out of all of them from levels 1 to 20 that do not really directly involve combat, but 2 of them are heavily used in combat, and 1 of them could be used in combat. So the majority of what you're going to be getting is combat related. This is a heavily focused combat class, and for the most part, you are going to be getting bonuses to be able to be in the thick of things and such. You, like I said, you are being able to dual wield. You do not have to worry about having a free hand to load your any firearms or anything that requires you to reload if you're wielding 2 weapons. And for the most part, I would say like I'm fine with that. Certain classes lend better to the different aspects of play. You probably are not going to be a bard. Being able to seduce, or you're not probably going to be the wizard, but you do have a few things that will help you out of combat, and I'll get into the major things, but I just want to gloss over the few things that help you outside of combat and how they're used inside of combat. So let's do those. So the things that are not used in combat but could be used in combat, the non-combat focused abilities, which they're, like I said, about 4, and some of them are more useful in combat as well. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is one that helps the fact like you do not get that many skills, and that is Eldritch Hunter. This allows you to gain your proficiency bonus when you're figuring out specific knowledge or tracking a specific type of creature, and if you are already proficient in that skill, you get to double your proficiency. This just helps that you soften the blow a bit if you don't have those skills selected and you're not able to get them, but if you do have them, you're really good at them. So it helps a little bit for the lack of skills you are able to actually get. And this could help a little bit in combat, before combat and leading up to combat, to just be able to know what you're fighting, where they're fighting, and their weaknesses while you're fighting. So there is that. The other one that I would say definitely leans into any situation, but also helps significantly in combat is... sorry about the burps. I just had lunch. Piercing Gaze, which you get at 3rd level. Eldritch Hunter, you got it first. So this allows you to gain dark vision for an hour And this dark vision is increased if you already have it, or you just get it if you don't. So like if you're a human, you get dark vision. If you're like an elf, you get increased dark vision. This is also special because unlike normal dark visions, it's sort of like the devil sight for the Eldritch Invocation as a warlock, and allows you to see through magical darkness. It also does take until a long rest to recharge, so once every 24 hours, and you're not able to see in darkness. But I will say it does get better. At 7th and 13th, it becomes see invisibility at 7th, and at 13th, it becomes true sight. So it becomes better. You can, by 7th level, you can see invisible things, as well as like peer into the ethereal plane, if I remember. And with true sight, you are able to tell if something is shapeshift or not. So it's pretty good then. And all the way at level 18, piercing gaze becomes 100% always on. Granted, that's 18, but you know, when you get Eternal Watch, then it'll be pretty sweet. And you know, you'll want true sight all the time, especially if you're playing in an Eldritch horror campaign like Steinhardt's is. The other thing that you get that is really out of combat is what is it called? Seasoned Survivor. It essentially allows you to figure out a lot of different things, because you get advantage on investigation checks to find hidden paths, weird runes, eldritch carvings and type deals. It allows you to better find information, which is always good, and can definitely synergize off of Eldritch Hunter. That's what it's called. It's called that. Yeah, Eldritch Hunter at level 1. Then finally, the other one that I think could be used within or in or out of combat, but is most likely going to be used mostly in combat, is at level 15, Inured to Madness. In Steinhardt's, there is a madness mechanic, so it will be more useful if you have that, but if it doesn't, you're fine. It gives you advantage on saving throws to be frightened, charmed, or an effect that causes madness. So if you are adventuring and someone tries to cast Charm Person on you, you have a better chance of succeeding. Also a better chance of hitting crits, which will be important in a little bit. Also, if you fail a saving throw, you can spend a focus point, but you must you must use the new roll. Wow, that took a lot longer. But you're probably thinking, what the fuck is a focus point? And that's what we're going to talk about next. Focus points are part of the main gameplay loop of a Jaeger. Focus points allow you to essentially become a little bit more survivable, because let's face it, you have a D8 hit points. You're probably just going to be wearing light armor, maybe heavy or not heavy, medium armor. You do not get that much protection. And sure, as you level up, you become harder to kill, and you get more things that will help you not die. That being said, focus points are the one half of the equation that makes sure that your gameplay loop is succeeding, and that's this half that allows you to survive in combat, as well as being able to more or less buff yourself in certain situations. Focus points are a limited pool of resources that you get. At level 1, you get 1, and by the time that you reach level 20, you will have 6 of them. They come back on a short or long rest, and like I said earlier about how a natural 20 is important, they also come back on a crit from an attack or a crit from a saving throw. So you can get them back in combat, and you do not have to wait until you are resting. Now then, what do you use focus points for? You heard me say like the Inured to Madness allows you to spend 1 to do that. What else can you spend focus points on? That's a great question, viewer. The thing that you can spend focus points on are focus arts. Focus arts are abilities that allow you to use your bonus action, your reaction, and sometimes whenever you're doing another action to essentially buff yourself or being able to get out of danger. The first two that you get at level 1 is weapon parry, which allows you to make a special weapon attack, which you can crit on, which allows you to get a focus point back, that allows you to reduce a damage of an attack that is within range of one of your weapons, even a gun. And if you reduce it down to 0, you also stun them until the start of the enemy's next turn. But, reducing damage is great. You also only have one reaction, but it's a little bit fine right now. But I said there was another one, and that is dodge step. Dodge step allows you to step and dodge out of the way. Granted, it uses your reaction. You only get one of those. And if you then make a, a dexterity saving throw, and the DC is equal to the attack roll. So hopefully they rolled low and just barely got, to hit you. But if you do roll well, you get no damage. It essentially allows you to have evasion for that little attack. And if you fail, though, you still dodge out of the way, but only take half damage. It sort of combines uncanny dodge of the rogue, but has a cost to it. So you are not going to be doing this all the time. And like I said, you will only be able to do these two at whenever you have a focus point. And also, I forgot to say this, you can, if you don't have a focus point when you roll initiative, you regain 1 focus point. So it's alright, but you're not going to have a lot of focus points. And if you do not, roll an nat 20, you are not getting those focus points back. Then again, a 5% chance that you're going to roll a nat 20 is pretty iffy. Like, I think I've rolled a handful while playing a campaign for attacks, and it's great whenever it happens, but it's not going to be all the time. That's where you try to make sure that you get advantage as much as possible. That allows you to more than likely hit with a crit. Not saying that it's 100%, but it is likely. Now that from saying that, you're just like, well, that's one half of the gameplay loop. What's the other half? Well, at level 2, which, it takes a bit to get into the full gameplay loop, but from what I've seen, most people start their campaigns at level 3 or 2 anyways, so unless you're one of those games that start at level 1, which I always like doing, you are probably going to be fine and you don't have to wait. But the other thing that you get are, I forgot to mention, besides also getting more focus points as you level up, you also get more focus arts as you level up. So keep that in mind. There are a few focus arts, like the one that allows you to dash is a bonus action by spending a focus point, one that allows you to gain momentum by spending a focus point, or more momentum by spending a focus point, and one that allows you to jump high, and so on and so forth. But what I just said there, momentum, what is that? The other half of the equation. So at level 2, you gain momentum. Whenever you spend a focus point, you gain a momentum. You have a pool of momentum that are momentum dice. And you're just like, okay, what do you do with that? Well, you can store it up, and you can store up to your proficiency plus your strength or your dex modifier. And they last until you spend them, or until you are no longer within 5 feet, you haven't been attacking, or you haven't gained momentum. So, what do you spend your momentum on? Finishers. Your finishers spend all your your momentum dice that you have, and they are able to do a big attack. And you can do this before or after you make an attack, but some things take up like your bonus action and require you to do other things. But a good portion of them require you to hit with an attack, and then you can spend them. So you could wait until you get a crit. So the main thing to keep in mind at level 2 when you get this, and when you first get momentum, you only have one finisher, but like focus points and focus arts, you get more as you level up. So, or you can get them from your chapters, which are your subclasses. And the first one that you get is Brutal Finisher, which just allows you to add your your momentum dice to an attack, which are, dice that increase in size. So they start off as a D6 and go all the way to a D10. This, if you hit a creature and it dies, you regain a focus point. So pretty good. A lot of the finishers do that, where if you kill a creature or they die before the start of your next turn, like if your buddy finishes them off, you regain that focus point. So you want to be essentially spending a lot of focus points to gain momentum to do finishers, so that you can regain focus points that you can do more and more. The main goal between the different sort of cycle of it is you have focus, you spend it on focus arts, you then get momentum. That momentum then is stored until you can then use a brutal finisher. Then you regain focus points that you can then do focus arts, and then you just do this over and over during combat. And there will be some combats where you do not really gain that many focus points back, but then there will be combats where you are just on a fucking tear, and you will breeze through combat encounters if you roll well. If you're not rolling well, then sorry, man, you're not doing too well. But let's talk about what I said. Chapters, your subclasses. There are 4. How many are there? Why did I shut off my phone? There are 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5. I was right. Cool. Let's talk about this. So, other small part. You do get other things in the class-wise that allow you to spend your focus points. Like, at level 6, you get Hunter's Pursuit, which allows you to move half your movement at the start of your turn to get to an enemy. And eventually you are able to regain your focus point that you spend if you end that movement on, next to an opponent. You also get Lethal Tempo, so if you're worried about not gaining enough momentum, if you hit a creature the first time in combat on your turn, then you get a momentum dice. And for the most part, I would say like this is pretty good, like way to gain momentum and also keep your focus points up. Granted, it does take a bit until you get to that point, but when you do, you do. And with the different chapters, the different subclasses, you get other abilities as well as other things that are essentially there to buff your already crazy things that you're able to do. For instance, the first chapter, we're not going to go through in depth. I'm just going to go through like certain parts of it. The absolute chapter is essentially heavily movement based and buffing their weapon parry and dodge step, as well as increasing their speed if they're wearing light or no armor. They also get some things that allow them to just continuously move around the battlefield. And their capstone ability, the Hunt, allows them to gain more momentum every time they spend a focus point. And it's just something that they're able to do once a day, essentially, and it lasts for a minute. So if you're facing a giant boss, you can declare a hunt, and for a minute you are gaining a fuck ton of momentum, and you are going around the battlefield and fucking shit up. So, all in all, pretty good if you want a speedy skirmisher type build. The other one, the next one, Heretic Chapter, allows you to essentially get pack magic from the Warlock. I will say it I don't really like this one in particular. Even though I do like warlocks, but it just, I don't know. I feel it's this one. I feel didn't really get as much like pizzazz, but you can't really do too much. But it's not saying like it's bad. I'm saying like me personally do not like it. One that I do like that sort of did like half caster for a third quarter caster for warlock was the blood hunter, the profane soul subclass. So there's that. But it essentially allows you to spend your focus points to cast a spell as a bonus action after you spent use the spell slot to cast a spell. You also get more. You can spend spell slots to gain momentum dice equal to your spell slot spent, and you also get a few more things like a cool transformation that you get at level 17 called the Darkness Within. And yeah, all in all, you get a few things that will buff your movement while also buffing the spells that you get, and just solidly being able to gain momentum. I think that's like the main goal, is being able to gain momentum as much as you can, and that's where most of the chapters really focus on, you being able to gain momentum. The Marauder chapter is the one that I really like. The Marauder and the Absolute are two of my favorite chapters in the class, so I'm really enjoying that. The Marauder is about big weapons-based damage. They get their own finisher called Great Cleave, and they also get a bonus to their momentum dice if they're using a two-handed weapon. But there is a feat that allows you to one-hand a two-handed weapon, so good times. But it allows you to, the finisher allows you to just essentially do a circle, and you get to attack multiple creatures based off of how many momentum dice you have. Granted, they have to be next to each other, but if they're stupid enough to get next to each other, they deserve what's coming towards them. They also get the ability to wear medium armor and not have to add their dex, but add their constitution, which is pretty good if you don't have a high dex instead of a high constitution. This class definitely will be in combat more often. I've also read this, subclass a lot, so the leap attack allows them to allows them to add a momentum die of damage if they move 10 feet or they're falling and they attack. And the Fell Leviathan one allows them to essentially knock a creature prone if they do a finisher. And if it's larger, and if it's a larger, they have disadvantage on that saving throw. So pretty good. And then Titanic Strength is their capstone thing, which is fucking awesome. It allows them to wield a two-handed weapon in one hand and can use two-weapon fighting even when the weapons they're wielding aren't light, including two-handed weapons. It's fucking cool, fucking cool. It also says if you use two hands to wield a two-handed weapon, you can add half of your strength modifier to the hit, in addition to what you would usually do. So, if you have a 5 modifier by this point as a level 17, round it up, so you would add 3 extra damage. So you're essentially adding 8 damage if you don't have a magical weapon, which is kind of crazy. Additionally, I will say, whenever you use a finish, you can double the number of momentum dice. Oh, that's so good. But you can only do this once per long rest. So if you really want to fuck something up, and the fact they get an extra step if you're using a two-handed weapon. So, instead of D6s at level 3, they will be using D8s. And by level 20, they will have D12s instead of D10s. That's disgusting. So, yeah. The other one, the other chapter is the Salvation chapter, which essentially allows you to use your focus points as a way to heal hit points for your allies as well as yourself. And essentially just, they're the healing subclass. I haven't really read too much about this one because I was really interested in those two, but, the Marauder and the Absolute. But it seems pretty good for, being able to keep your allies in the fight and you in the fight because you don't have that many hit points. And they're level 17. I do remember reading this. For a minute, their Light of Hope ability at level 17 was called. You essentially are under the effect of the Bless spell, and whenever a creature in the bright light that radiates around you between 30 feet and then dim light 30 feet, so 60 feet in total, whenever a creature has advantage on a saving throw when then they're in 30 feet of you, do not die at 3 oh wow, I haven't actually read this part. Creatures in the bright light have advantage on death saves and do not die at 3 failed saves. Become stable with 3 successful saves, even if they have. Oh wow, that's they. I actually didn't read that. They just really are good at making sure people don't die. Also, whenever they use their one focus art that they have, Prayer of Salvation, which allows you to heal hit points and equal and gain a number. Okay, they roll a d6 and they regain hit points and then gain an equal number of temporary hit points. So when they use that with the Light of Hope, you immediately regain that expended focus point, which means that you are incentivized to heal people while this is going on. So you are doing pretty good. And lastly, the final chapter is the Sanguine chapter. It's blood magic, and you get a pretty decent it allows you to regain hit points using your, specifically you, not like the Salvation, which is for everyone. The Sanguine chapter is just like, you are my Capri Sun now. And they heal, and then also it just gets pretty good with the amount of empowering that they can do with the drain, where they can just use a lot more. And then they also get a finisher where is it? Oh wait, the finisher is Blood Drain. They get the Blood Craze, which is a focus art reaction. That's what it is, which allows them to spend a focus point to get to 1 hit point instead of falling to 0, which is pretty good to make sure that you survive, as well as the fact that you are going to be gaining momentum dice to be able to use on your finishers, which allows you to be able to do more damage. It is sort of that the wheel of gameplay loops is what I'm trying to say. But I will also say, by level 20, you're just like, oh man, I don't have that many reactions. Wrong. At the very end, at level 20, if you ever made it that far, you get the Always Ready feature. And it's great, because as soon as my phone fully loads the picture in correctly, there it goes. Once per round, at the beginning of the start of each of your turns, you gain 1 additional reaction, which you can use for a focus art that requires a reaction, like Weapon Parry or Dodge Step. When you expend a focus point on this special reaction, you immediately regain the expended focus point. So you are just constantly gaining momentum by that point, and if you're like the Sanguine fucking chapter, you're really hard to kill at that point. But all in all, I really do enjoy it. There are a few things that I would say that might be a little bit difficult to do, because if you don't roll high, you are not going to be getting the focus points back early on. But after you get to a certain point, I want to say by 11, you won't have to rely solely on your focus points to gain momentum with lethal tempo. But there are a few feats that you can take that will help out that are in this book. Alright, almost done. So those feats that I was talking about in this book, there are a few feats that definitely synergize very well with the Jaeger in total. One of them being that you have to have the Jaeger class at level 1, as well as a strength of level 18 or higher. And that's Brutal Attacker. It's a feat that allows you to wield a two-handed weapon in one hand as long as your other hand is empty, or wielding a one-handed weapon. So by level 17 for the Marauder, you can probably dual wield too. But, it allows you to wield a, fucking greatsword in one hand and a pistol in another. And whenever you reduce a creature to 0 hit points, your next attack roll before the end of your next turn gains advantage. So you will be aiming for the small little dudes on the battlefield, the little mobs, take them down, use your advantage on the big bad to try and get more focus points. Also, if you zero out a creature at the end of your turn, and then another creature attacks you before the end of before the start of your next turn, well, you can use weapon parry if you haven't used your reaction to gain advantage on that attack roll to be able to more likely succeed. So it's pretty good for a feat wise to be able to more solidly succeed on some things. The other feat that I want to talk about that you gain is the Focused Hunter feat, which allows you to increase your strength or your dexterity by 1. There is no prerequisite to this, and allows you to gain an additional focus point, or gain more if you already have focus points. Say you're a Jaeger, and that allows you to pick a focus art, either weapon, parry, or dodge step. But if you already have those, or if you don't want those, you can pick another one of the several different focus arts that you can have. And, they regain them. If you don't have focus points, you can only regain this one on a short or long rest. But if you're a Jaeger, you're going to regain them more. There's also a few other feats in the book that work pretty well, that are changed and adapted to fit more with the world of Steinhardt's. The Great Weapon Adept, which is essentially a change from Great Weapon Master that was in the player's handbook, essentially has relatively the same thing with the -5 to the attack roll to add +10 to the +10 to the attack's damage, which is fine. The part that did change was that if you score a critical hit or reduce a creature to 0 hit points with a melee weapon, you can, instead of having it as a bonus action, you can immediately do it as a free part of your attack. So you gain 3 attacks. Essentially, the main goal of your Jaeger is to attack as much as possible. To attack as much as possible, to hit as much as possible, to gain as much momentum and regain as much focus points as possible. That is the gameplay loop, and trying to get as many points as you possibly can. Granted, I will say it probably is difficult. Again, I haven't been able to play because I only have one game group going on, and it's sometimes difficult to find a game, and I have I'm a little bit anxious when talking to new people, so that's a reason why I haven't done that. But like I said, the main goal is to gain as much momentum, to regain as much focus points, to gain more momentum, to do bigger hits, to essentially whittle down the enemy. And in the book, there's also several other subclasses for the 12 classes, and unfortunately they don't have the Artificer, though I remember the creator of the book, Monkey DM, said he's going to do a Artificer that isn't paid for because it's not part of the OGL or the Creative Commons that is now. Because why make things better for people? WotC? What the fuck? So, oh no, that's about it. I'm gonna walk off and then walk back on, and then we're gonna finish up the video. If you can't tell, I really like this class. So, well, that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I really do like this class, and I would love to play it at some point. Though based off of how life is, I might never be able to play it, but you know, I could at some point, or not, I don't know. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you do want to hear me talk about more classes, whether they be in D&D or Pathfinder, I'm down for that. I'd be happy to do that. Though, if it's Pathfinder, like this class, it would just mostly be me speculating, and I could have been completely wrong about the class, but hopefully I'm not. So, yeah. If you want to have me talk about that, put it down in the comments down below. Ugh. Really, so many burps. If you liked this bearded face, think about hitting the subscribe button to see more of this bearded face, and if you really want me to talk about more, hit the like button so I know that this is more content you want to see and hear about. But yeah, that's it. I'm gonna go play some video games and edit this and be happy. So stay safe out there, read some manga, play some video games, you know, listen to some banger music, and get some friends together to play some awesome TTRPGs. Yeah, that's it. Stay safe. Bye.